Hello everyone, my name is Diane and I'm a graduate student here at UC Irvine School of Education. In this video, I will be talking about the importance of building a community, or in other words, forming healthy relationships among volunteers, with the youth, and among staff in after-school programs like Mass CEO. Well, building a community is much easier said than done. There are many barriers. In programs like Mass CEO, some of them might be not enough time or space, language barriers, or even just thinking that time should be spent on doing math instead of making small talk or get to know each other. Indeed, intentionally building a community can often be overlooked in such a fast-paced, learning-oriented setting with lots of people in a confined space. But taking the time to build a community can really make a difference. A community is a setting made up of individuals who come together for a common purpose. In an inclusive space, members of the community should feel that they are welcomed, have a connection with those around them, and know that they are valued. Community building is the foundation for learning and creating an inclusive space. Building community is important for several reasons. First, it promotes a sense of belongingness. Belonging is a fundamental human need. Youth who feel like they belong tend to do better academically. Second, community facilitates positive group interactions. Students become more comfortable working in groups, which foster a collaborative environment. Third, it increases in youth participation and attendance. Students become more likely to contribute to group discussions and activities. Fourth, community building promotes student learning. When students feel like they belong and are part of a community, they feel safe and are in a better position to learn. Relationships are the foundation for a sense of community. Relationships characterized by positive connections can have many benefits for youth and staff, including promoting a shared sense of community and respect, a shared sense of competence, which refers to the ability to do something successfully or efficiently, and a shared sense of autonomy or a sense of personal responsibility. In youth programs, relationships at all levels contribute to a sense of community. This includes relationships between youth and mentors, relationships among youth, and also relationships among staff or mentors. Strong mentoring relationships with adults, in particular, are a critical feature of high-quality youth programs. Compared to teachers, staff of youth programs face with fewer curricular demands and constraints, and are often afforded unique opportunities to engage in a sort of informal conversations and enjoyable activities that can give rise to close bonds with youth. These mentoring relationships greatly influence the social and intellectual climates of these settings. Indeed, there is growing consensus that caring youth-staff relationships may be a key determinant of both retention and success in those programs. Knowing that building a community is crucial, especially in youth program contexts, how can we promote it? Well, there's not a silver bullet to community building. For some relationships, it can happen organically, but for others, it may take time and effort. Time for people to get familiar with each other, time for people to open up, and also time for people to form trust. Community building is also easier said than done. For example, there are particularly two things to be mindful of. First, power dynamics. Youth programs tend to have some form of power dynamic between youth and adults. A power dynamic is the way different people or different groups of people interact with each other, and where one of these sides is more powerful than the other. Examples include thinking that adults know more than youth, or boys being better at math than girls. Unchecked power dynamics like those can limit the extent of community building. Being mindful of issues surrounding power dynamics and addressing them promotes equal respect and diversity. Second, and relatedly, it is important to be mindful of the comfort level of each of the students in a space, including but not limited to things such as identity and language. One way of promoting community and positive connections with your mentees, specifically, is to use the ask, listen, encourage method. The ask strategy is about asking effective questions, engaging youth in dialogue, and promoting critical thinking. In your interaction with youth, ask lots of questions. However, make sure to balance questions with comments and dialogues, and make sure every youth is in a group has an input. Listen is about being attentive to youth when they speak and showing support with empathy. Show youth that you are listening. Try to identify feelings and empathize. Hold back and let youth speak. And remember context and details. Importantly, listening also allows you to monitor the emotional climate of your group. Encourage is about making specific observations about the decisions and actions of young people as they work, encouraging them to succeed without resorting to judgment. You should try to participate alongside the youth. Encourage them to describe plans, feelings, and goals. Make specific comments and avoid judgment, and also be honest. As we mentioned, there are a host of benefits for youth if we build a healthy community. That is also true for staff, mentors, and everyone else in the community. For example, building a sense of community prepares staff, mentors to better handle challenges and conflicts. Challenges and conflicts are normal and can occur in most community building efforts as individuals begin to better understand and work with each other. Conflicts should be monitored so that it doesn't get out of hand. Forming positive connections with other staff and mentors to make everyone feel more valued and hence more dedicated to the programs, activities, and more dedicated to the youth. A sense of community also provides opportunities to debrief mentoring experiences, both negatives and positive, which in turn can allow mentors to learn different strategies to better engage youth. Now we are transitioning into the second half of this video, which aims to equip you with a toolbox of activities that could facilitate this community building process. The idea is that you can keep the activities I introduce at the back of your head, and whenever a situation calls, you can put it out, utilize the activities to make the space more welcoming. Starting with activities that familiarize people with each other's names are great places to start. A small tip that might go a long way is to ask for people's preferred name, or simply what they wish to go by. This first simple activity is a name activity that also gets people moving a little bit, and it is called group juggle. People are in a circle and first introduce their preferred names. First round include one story that needs to start and end with one person and be received by each person in the group once. When you toss the story, you want to say the person's name who you are throwing to. Remember who you threw it to and who threw it to you. Go around once or twice to establish the pattern. Make sure everyone knows the pattern before moving on. Add theory number 2 to round 2, which goes in the reverse direction as the first theory. In other words, you toss theory number 2 to the person who tossed theory number 1 to you. Now both theories are being tossed, hence a juggle. For example, you can practice this multiple times to make sure people know each other's name well. And you can also add some fun to this. For example, challenge the group not to drop it, or challenge the group to a certain time limit. To even increase the challenge, especially for a large group or a more advanced group, add a phone to the next round. Pass the phone in clockwise direction and say the person's name, this is for you, when you pass the phone. For example, feel free to add more challenges. For example, stepping over a hula hoop, or have two groups and have them race each other to a time limit. Group juggle can be a simple name activity, for example, to be facilitated at the very first few sessions between volunteers and youth. This activity can also be more intentional for professional development, for example, among mentors or staff. Ask participants how they feel about the process. What aspects do they find challenging and how they overcame it? A likely answer is that juggling different responsibilities, like the different throwies and the phone, could be very challenging, especially when you are part of a group and you don't want to let them down. From there, you can connect to ask how this activity symbolize the situations we might encounter in an after-school program setting. Also, how can we support each other in juggling the many tasks that we'll face in an after-school program? Moving beyond NAN activities, get to know you activities are a great way to form connections by showing how we are similar and also unique at the same time. Neighbors is a fun way to do that while getting people to move around again. Set up poly spots in a circle for every participant except one who will be standing in the middle. Person in the middle will first introduce themselves to the group and then call out something about themselves. For example, I'm a math major. If the statement applies to anyone, they need to find a new spot that is not right next to where they are. The person in the middle would also be rushing to a spot, so a new person would be in the middle, for example. As shown, since we have one less spot, a new person will be in the middle, and similarly, they will introduce themselves and share something about them. For example, I commute to school. And again, everyone will think about whether the comment applies to them. If so, they need to find a new spot, and the process repeats. If we have a large group, we could do neighbors in pairs. Two people would be in the same spot. Within each pair, they first find out three things they have in common. The pair in the middle share who they are and one of their commonalities. For example, the pair may share that we both have two siblings. If the statement applies to you or your partner, you need to find a new spot as a pair. A new pair again will be in the middle, and we repeat. The new pair will share who they are and one of their commonalities. In this version, we can build in some time in between rounds for people to talk. Maybe the newfound commonality or differences could lead to very interesting conversations. Next, we'll demonstrate an activity that invites people to share their culture. This could be a great gateway into building even deeper connections. Make sure to prepare yourself with an open mind and inclusive expressions. Refer to the culturally responsive video for tips on how to minimize implicit biases. This activity is called a human map. The facilitator puts a prop in a central spot and say, for example, this is Irvine, California. Point to the four corners and name them north, south, east, and west. Next, invite people to physically stand to where they call home. This will get the group moving. For example, someone living in Los Angeles, which is very close to Irvine, would be just a little bit north of the central spot, whereas someone from internationally another country would be far, far away from the central spot. Now that we can visibly see all the diverse places people come from, we want to invite people to talk with 2 or 3 people around them. You can decide the topic, for example, relating to this one, share a fun fact about their home country or hometown, or something they are proud of their culture. Next round, we can change the topic. For example, we can ask people to stand to where they would like to visit. And again, with 2 or 3 people there, share their destination of choice and why. Similarly, we can invite people to come back to the center and change what the center stands for. For example, if we are in a school setting, we can make it the middle of campus. And then we can ask people to stand to their favorite studying spot and share what they do outside of this particular after-school program. Or we can invite people to stand to their home department and share with 2 or 3 people around them why they chose their major. If this activity is used among adults, for example, mentor and staff training, we can jump off to deeper conversations about how each of us can bring our unique culture to the shared space of this after-school program. What are some concrete ways to celebrate and leverage each other's cultural assets, for example, incorporating them into our curriculum, instead of simply acknowledging cultural differences? Before wrapping up this video, I want to note that community building can occur at many different levels and can be done in many different ways. In the after-school setting, we might be focused on the relationship between youth and mentors. But it is equally important to build communities and a sense of collegiality among volunteers and staff. Community building also takes many different forms. So far, we have demonstrated group community activities. But it is also important to leverage one-on-one relationships. Especially, for example, when a youth is not feeling like participating in a large group, having engaging activities that you can do one-on-one would be very helpful. Having a cool toolkit of mental puzzles could be very helpful in engaging youth in a very different way, but also nonetheless make the youth feel welcomed. For example, here's a puzzle called 24. The goal is to come up with a mathematical expression that uses the 4 numbers to get to 24. You can be creative about how you choose the 4 numbers. For example, the youth birthday, you can ask for their favorite number or ask for their grade in school. I will suggest 3 main takeaways from this video. First, community building is the foundation for learning and creating an inclusive space. Secondly, through intentional community building practices and activities, you can facilitate the community building process and create genuine and positive relationships between students, mentors, and staff. Lastly, be adaptive. Community building occurs at different levels and can be done in many different ways.